Welcome back to Gutter Wisdom. We're currently in the middle of a 4-part series I call the Safety Briefing. Before we start engineering your pleasure, we gotta audit your discernment. I've invited my friend and colleague, Brittany Wittig, to sit in the gutter with me. She's someone I trust deeply and personally work with, and we're gonna dismantle the spiritual industrial complex. The hustlers, the cult leaders, the so-called healers who charge you a premium for your own vulnerability. If you're just joining us, start with episode 2. This series is designed to be listened in order. If you're already in the middle of it, let's continue the audit. In this episode, the focus shifts. We stop auditing leaders and we start auditing responsibility. Because once you can see these dynamics clearly, the real question becomes, what kind of power do you carry? And are you equipped to hold it?
Looking for this in a leader, right? Seeing that a leader understands that. Watching out for these controlled initiations, this idea that the leader will initiate you rather than life initiating you. And then the spiritual industrial complex, this happily ever after idea, delusion that you are being sold a way to reach. So I just want to reiterate those as things to watch out for. And now for those listeners who are maybe our leaders, are considering becoming leaders, are considering becoming teachers or guides, I know that you have some responsibilities that you feel should be checked off in order to be ready to be a guide or to be a leader or teacher.
Thank you so much for that synthesis of what was a very, very juicy conversation. My dear friend in New York, Alison Strickland, she is a brilliant channeled artist. And she says that leaders who move from a place of insecurity are a liability. And it's that subtle or not so subtle insecurity that starts the slippery slope of the pride, because you need then the people's experience to feed that insecurity, right? And so I love starting this part of the conversation with that quote, because truly you are being asked to be the stability for others, which means you better feel that anchor.
Yes.
You better feel that anger. When I mentor other people, sometimes we have this conversation about the potential to do harm. And sometimes it can instigate this fear and this freeze. And then people are like, oh, I can't. Well, what am I going to do? And it's like, you still got to move, babes. Like, you still got to create in the world. You still got to. So one, have you dismantled your perfectionism? And have you strengthened your repair muscle for when you fuck up? Have you deconstructed your colonial perfectionism, and have you strengthened your repair muscle for when you fuck up? Because it's going to happen. And I promise you, as a sex worker who works in very kinky domains, things go wrong all the time. It is part of the job, right? It's just part of the job. So I have had lots of practice in the art of the pivot, the art of repair, the art of holding someone through a mess. Yeah. What's your practice with that? Truly being messy with people, because this is a messy process. If you've listened to any of my other podcasts, you know that I have what I call height checks for how do you get into BDSM and kink. And my height check for are you ready to hold is very simple, because it doesn't matter where you are on this journey. The question remains, do you know what it feels like when you're off? And then do you have the skillful means to get back on? And that goes beyond circumstance. I don't care if it's about money. I don't care if it's about an interpersonal dynamic. I don't care if it's about an offering. I don't care if it's about website copy. I don't care if it's about your relationship to social media. All of these things are going to be so different for everybody. But you have to know, what does it feel like when I'm off? And do I have the skillful means to get back on? I'll give an example of my own. When I first put out the classes, the digital classes, I had it priced on a sliding scale, and all of my work, my digital work, is on a sliding scale. That's the kind of reciprocity I desire to be in that feels really fruitful for me. But these digital classes, I put them on a sliding scale, and something just fell off. I was like, oh, I don't know what this is. So I sat with it because I knew what that felt like. I'm a hairline fracture off. I'm 2 weeks after pressing the publish button. Something isn't sitting right. And so I sit and I listen because I've followed that feeling inside of me. And what I heard was just let them come. And what I was shown was a gallery with photos on it and a little donation bucket. And it hit me. This was my art. I have framed my art. My art is in a gallery. Do not gatekeep your art. And so now the 4-part masterclass series, it sits in a gallery. It sits online and it's pay what you want. 8 hours. I said, oh, right. Why would I gatekeep this? Why would I do that? And so I had the skillful means to shift and say, oh, look, I did this in a way that isn't going to be right for me in the long term. And I fixed it and I changed it and I did that. And the skillful means aren't the actual like changing of the computer systems. That's not it. The skillful means is, did I have the capacity to listen? Did I have the skillful means to see what spirit was nudging me about? Like, what are you nudging me about, God? You know, that's the skillful means. Do you have the ability to empty and listen for the truth?
I love that. I would also like to share an example of this because I just recently had this experience, and I think this is one of those things that more examples will be helpful for people, because it's a little subtle. Beginning in October, I am going to be out of the country traveling for 6 months in Patagonia, which is the southern edge of South America, and it's a very remote area. I originally was thinking, oh, I'm going to have to figure out how to have internet. I'm going to need Starlink. I'm going to have to figure something out so that while I'm traveling in this wilderness area for 6 months, I can remain plugged into the internet and plugged into my work in a certain way, in the way that I have been working. As I begin to research ways to do that, to remain plugged in, it felt off. Exactly what you said. It felt off. I could feel that hairline fracture. So I stopped the research and I sat with it. I sat with the question of what is off for quite a while. I allowed the answer to come in. And what finally dropped in for me was that I am not meant to remain plugged in the way that I have been for many years now on this 6-month excursion. I am not meant to continue my work in the same way for these 6 months. That finally came in very clearly. So I am no longer researching ways to connect. I will be off grid almost completely for 6 months. That is something that I am willing to do because when I listen, I trust. And as soon as I made that decision, I could feel the yes of it, the alignment of it.
I love that. I love the trust of the message because often the message is antithetical to the noise of society that is screaming at you to do a certain thing. And when you hear it, it takes skill and practice to hear it, and then it takes skill and practice and courage to listen to it and to trust it.
Yeah.
You know, the synergy between my example and your example is how antithetical it is to society. Because in my priestess lineage, Jumana speaks about the tonification of abundance as being all that you need and a little bit more. All that you need and a little bit more. And I always appreciated that from the tree analogy, which I feel like I bring up a tree analogy every time I'm on this podcast, Brittany.
Well, I fucking love trees, like so much. So it's perfect.
This tree analogy of, oh, money is like water in this analogy. All that I need and a little bit more. I don't want the soil to get so dry that I'm like, my roots are so dry. My leaves are yellowing, all of this. I can't have that. But too much water, what happens to a tree? It gets root rot. The roots actually rot. The wood inside becomes like a sponge. It's gross. And so there was a way that me saying, I'm going to put the most infamous classes of mine online basically for free on a pay what you want scale. You're going to go totally off grid for 6 months and not talk to anybody in your audience. It's so antithetical to every single mainstream thing that you're hearing. And the reason is because they have not deconstructed a lot of that, going back to this spiritual industrial complex or this God complex, or that they have to control their audiences. And if they release control for 6 months, well,
Oh, yes. Oh, that's a big one. That's a big one right there. This idea that you need to control your audience, which is 100%, I feel like, very connected to the God complex idea.
totally.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your height checks, beauties. Do you know what it feels like when you're off? And do you have the skillful means fortified? I mean, not just like conceptualized. I mean, fortified in you so that you know how to get back on. Because
Yeah.
even kindergarten teachers often have master's degrees, right?
Yes.
They didn't just graduate kindergarten.
Yes.
I gotta close with this, right?
Yes.
Like, no, it takes skill. And what I can't stand that is happening in this, because, right, I get all these coaching ads. They say, oh, you just need to know a little bit more than the people that you're coaching so you can help them. No. Look at kindergarten teachers. They have master's degrees.
Yes.
Stand in integrity. The choice to pick up the torch of guidance and leadership and power is not one to pick up lightly. We've spent the last 4 episodes talking about power in the collective, how it gets distorted, outsourced, and abused when people are hungry for meaning. But you can't just audit other people. You have to audit yourself, especially if you want to play in the dark. Next week, we're pivoting. I'm taking this concept of height check and applying it directly to your bedroom. Because BDSM is a roller coaster, and if you ain't tall enough to ride, the safety mechanisms don't protect you. They create the injury. I'll give you the 3 non-negotiable requirements that you need in your system before you ever pick up a blindfold or a whip. I'll see you next week for the protocol. Until then, keep your mind in the gutter, y'all. You'd be surprised at what you find in the dark.